Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thanks again so much for joining me here. Hope you're having a great day. We got a really important one today. We're going to talk about some specific coins here that are outperforming versus Bitcoin still. They're double bottoming while Bitcoin is establishing lower lows and lower highs. It should essentially get us in a better place to see the price action go higher. So once again, thanks for being an awesome part of my life. Deeply appreciate you liking the videos, commenting below, and more importantly here too, touching on volume, the specific indicator here, just letting us know that even though yes, the price is going down for Bitcoin, kind of in its stupid range here, for lack of better terms, we're seeing volume continuously increasing. So it's a very, very good sign here for the foundation for Bitcoin to be increasing, with Bitcoin dominance also increasing too. So all we need here is to see altcoin dominance essentially start to taper off there and slow its declining pressure. We'll double check that and much more, but there's definitely some indications here on the lower time frames here that lead me to believe that we're going to probably go up in the short term after all this liquidation to the downside has been fully swept. So we'll take a look at that and much more. Be sure to stick around. All right, folks, before we jump into the back-end data, just want to wish you a Merry Christmas Eve. That's kind of something that my family likes to say. Basically, every time you add the word Eve, it goes back a day, right? So we are 2 days away, so it's Merry Christmas Eve to all. Let me know in the comments below, what are your plans for the holidays? Are you hosting or are you going somewhere for the holidays? Do you typically travel? Let's take a look here at the back-end data, just double check some stuff. First of all, 87,700 is that lower area of support with 88.3 just above. This really is one of those situations that doesn't tell us a heck of a lot. There's no key level outliers, but if you do see, as far as a delta is concerned, there's more buying pressure below the price than above. In other words, there's just slightly more order blocks and more interest in buying with a lower price point. So it kind of lets us know we're getting closer to the bottom. It doesn't tell us a heck of a lot, but it does kind of, if that combines with liquidation, there's different ways you can kind of interpret that. And for me personally, I interpret that positively, letting me know that we're kind of in a position where the price should start to capitulate soon. I'm really excited to talk about some altcoins here today that are actually going to be looking very strong versus Bitcoin, or sorry, they already are looking strong versus Bitcoin. One of them we're in a trade with already. You probably already know this if you're part of my community, but at this point, I think we're in pretty good shape. We'll double check to make sure there's no outliers. First of all, volume is significantly increasing here, of course, as the days progress. So when price pulls back and volume starts to increase, that leads me to believe that we're starting to hit our local bottom. Okay. Now, there's no guarantee in that, but when Bitcoin dominance goes up, usually it's a firm indication that we're starting to see some money flowing in. We're also starting to see this stablecoin dominance starting to taper off too, at least in the last 12 hours. Okay, so that's generally a favorable sign. We like to see that. The only thing that's just unfortunate is, of course, most altcoins are getting hit pretty hard here with a kind of a bearish type of candle there for the overall momentum of the downside. So you want to be careful with coins that you trade here today. You have to cherry pick, for lack of better terms. They're not all just doing well versus Bitcoin. Most are underperforming or underwhelming. Okay, so we'll double check that and much more. So quickly to note here, with liquidation on the 24-hour time frame, let's get some quick refreshes here. We can see there's a healthy amount of liquidation at 88,500. I feel like that's going to be the next target, just based on the simple fact that we hit that 86.5K range already, based on liquidation, which we can look at here soon, but pretty straightforward. There was a good, 8 to 10 billion liquidation that got hit just with that wick alone. Okay, so well done, market makers. You did your job, but you may not have done your entire job. If you look here, the last 7 days, there's still some liquidation at 86.5. So we don't want to be too presumptuous. We're just going to go up because last 24-hour liquidation has some above. That I think short term, yes, we're good, but more macro. 88.5 could be the local high, right? Because that was supposed to work as our support level, but the price dumped straight through there as soon as Asian markets opened yesterday. Looking at the last 30 days, we can see here as well, large accumulation at 91,000 still. We talked about that previously being likely the next target for Bitcoin. I assumed or presumed we would hit this 88.5K range and have some support. That didn't happen whatsoever. So it just blasted straight through. But once more, liquidation is king. If you see here, 88.5 had a ton of liquidation just below it, and it just continued to push the price action lower. Okay, so looking on the far right-hand side, last 30 days, we are getting closer and closer to this 84K range. So just keep in mind, 84K is still on the docket. We cannot, kind of rule out the fact that we could see that price point still. I wouldn't put it past market makers to push that down during the holiday season too as well, just based on this being the end of the year, taxes, etc. A lot of profits being taken before the year is over. So we should probably presume that that's going to be a relatively realistic target. Okay. Now, when that will happen, it's hard to say specifically. Are we going to go straight up from here? Probably not. Or are we going to go straight down to that level right away too? Also, probably not, but we're getting closer to that level there. Now, what I want to talk about really quick is once more this 86,500, the perfect candle wick down there. Look at that destruction candle. Each one of these bars is about one to $1.5 billion. So that's a good chunk of change. So late longs got destroyed there. Exactly why I recommend waiting in my video from yesterday, saying, hey, we want to at least let 88.5 get a chance to hold or hit first. And truth is, it went $2,000 lower than that, right? So even though I was interested in taking a long there, I wanted to wait and reevaluate to make sure that it's worth taking a position at that point. So if you caught my alert here from yesterday when I sent out the update to my community, letting people know like areas of interest, we're in almost every single one of those areas of interest. I'm just a little apprehensive to take a long immediately based on the simple fact that we need to make sure to identify the coins that are doing better or worse in Bitcoin and kind of adjust accordingly. All right. So quickly to note, 92,000, 90,000, those two key level resistances for us. 90K specifically here locally was that obvious area. We do still have slightly more longs than shorts with our liquidation delta. So it does tell us that longs are fighting to hold this level of about 86 to 87K. And once more, we've already seen that liquidation range there. So let's jump into the charts and kind of touch on this here. Once more, the previous high should work as a new low. Certainly didn't, and we got to presume that may actually be the new high now. Okay. The good news is we are still respecting our descending trend line here. Basically a bullish back to the descending trend line. It's a very common characteristic where it's basically a fake out in a lot of ways. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the power of three pattern here, but oftentimes you'll see the price action work itself into a channel. The price comes up here to trap late longs, and then it comes back down to rinse those late longs. And this is right where we're at now. So now that we've swept this lower range here, so to speak, this liquidation, it makes perfect sense for the price to capitulate and to return back to where it should have gone in the first place, right? And that is the 90 to 92K range. So I'm leaning a little bit more towards that still being a distinct reality for us. I'll update our playout chart and post that on our Twitter, Telegram, Discord so you can see that. And also, too, if you're liking the AI content, too, I'm posting on our social media, please let me know, too. I've gotten some good feedback. Of course, not everyone's communicated. Let me go ahead and find it here for you. But there's actually some really cool kind of some good stuff here. What it does, it basically, I run my videos through AI, and it gives me a pretty cool little chart graphic based on everything I talked about in the videos. So it's actually kind of a cool summary of all the coins that we cover here, just kind of letting us know, hey, or just an easy representation of what's going on. So if you're finding benefit there, please let me know as well, or continue to like the content. Thanks again for doing that. Now with Bitcoin, last thing we want to do here to summarize is the daily time frame. Let's quickly double check that and kind of see, because we can see the 4-hour time frames kind of transitioning. It hasn't fully broken bearish, but it's certainly transitioning. Daily time frame, if we were to close at 88.5 or higher today, which is still a possibility, we'd have like a it would be a dragonfly doji candle, and that'd be huge. It'd basically tell us that the last 24 hours, they tried to pull the price action down, couldn't succeed, and we maintain above this support. So technically, 88.5 is still a potential support level for us, right? If we can reclaim that level sometime today. Stochastic is still swinging up, of course. It's going to be like that for a while. MACD, money flow index, everything's kind of just under awesome. So we're still not in a great position here right now to be like, hey, we're going to the moon. We're all good. I think we need to reclaim a lot more than just a descending trend or a local high. But for the most part, that would be an early indication that we're potentially back on track. 4-hour time frame to summarize here, we're still under 50 on the RSI. Kind of maintaining below that. If we close below that here today, could be disadvantageous, basically just letting us know that we've lost some support, which once more is kind of that 88.5K range. So I think a lot hinges on 88.5. If we can reclaim that level today and maintain above it, I think we're in pretty decent shape to see further upside here as well. So why don't we go ahead and take a look at some altcoins next, kind of see which ones are performing better or worse than Bitcoin, and kind of pick some good ones here today. Okay, let's take a look. Friendly reminder to our traders, we got a 15% trading discount using my link below to register for Bitunix. You'll also automatically be eligible for future trading competitions through this exchange. It's an excellent exchange. There is no KYC required. Be sure to use my link down below to register. All right, folks, take a quick look here at Ethereum first, kind of get a baseline of what's going on. This coin definitely lost its support level just as it did with Bitcoin. So it's nothing super outrageous as far as a comparison versus Bitcoin. Looks like it's performing very similar in a lot of ways, but it also has lost that $3,000 support. So as discussed yesterday, that $2,950 to $3,000 range is a decent area to consider a long position for this coin as far as tight margins are concerned. So let's do a quick little refresh here and double check kind of where we're at here with Ethereum Ethereum. Once more, as mentioned previously, 2950 to 3000 is that heavy area of open interest. Liquidation long delta is still high, similar to Bitcoin in that way as far as staying in the green. So it's positive overall, certainly letting us know that now that liquidation here, majority of it has been fully swept here, with the exception of 2850 to 2880. We're in pretty decent shape to see a short-term recovery here to the upside. So once more, as important it is for Bitcoin to reclaim 88,500, 3,000 is the same for Ethereum as well. Okay. Now, as far as the charts are concerned, there's no mega shift here that I'm seeing that's anything really different from yesterday. Yes, we lost 50 in the RSI. Bitcoin did the same thing, and in a lot of ways, the daily time frame, even though it is generally positive for the short-term descending trend to be broken, closing above this level of 2950, I think is going to be important today. So I think a closure above 2950 could signal further upside, but it really just depends on how Bitcoin performs, because as we've identified already, these two coins are moving very synonymous in a lot of ways, and you could almost argue that Ethereum is slightly more underwhelming than Bitcoin as far as the most recent time frame. You look here, we can see a bullish engulfing candle so far, and we still have yet to recover from our previous high there at 2930. So, or sorry, that's 2970 rather. So overall, I think at this point, probably best to be patient on this coin, see if we can close above 3,000, 885 for Bitcoin, and kind of go from there. Between now and then, try not to force a trade because this coin doesn't look super special for the moment. All right, let's take a look at another one. All right, folks, taking a quick look here at Solana, and as we can see, we did not bounce out that point of control. That could have happened had Bitcoin held 88,500 and didn't get greedy to sweep that liquidation at 86.5. So now that we're seeing Bitcoin recover slightly, we're also seeing a similar recovery here from Solana. So the truth is, this isn't a great situation. We're seeing some synonymous behavior in a lot of ways with this coin, and that doesn't give me a strong vote of confidence letting me know that I should take along with this coin, right? Generally speaking, though, I can see, though, that there is slightly less of a retracement than Solana, than Bitcoin versus Solana here. So that really leads me to believe that Solana could very well recover well, but a lot of it hinges on the back-end data here, kind of letting us know that we don't have a shift in momentum, right? Truth is, we do have liquidation delta in the red now, right? So we have more shorts than longs versus Bitcoin and Ethereum. And we can also recognize too that 130 and 122 are those two respective upper and lower ranges. So hypothetically, from a range-bound trading perspective, we should see a bounce in this 122 to 123 to recover and return back to 130. That does require Bitcoin to start trending towards 90,000 though. And if we do take a look at liquidation, there's still a lot left here to the downside. A good, 1.6, 1.1, I don't know, somewhere in the range of like 3 to 4 billion in liquidation, still down as low as 120. So hypothetically, we see the price pull back a bit further for Bitcoin. I think Solana will hit that 120 range and potentially bounce from there. Between now and then, at this point, it's best to presume that we're not in good shape. We are ranging fairly well with a lot of doji candles here so far this week, with the last 3 days in a row, like triple doji. That's really a big confusing mess when you see that. Okay. But the daily time frame doesn't give us any indication that unless we're back up above 127, there's no real reason to be like super happy about this, because once more, we got that point of control here with the local range at 127, kind of reaffirming that as a resistance. So until we reclaim that level, just as 3,000 is for Ethereum and 88.5 for Bitcoin, we're not in a position to be like, yeah, we're going to go straight up from here. All right. We're probably going to go lower to see that 120 if Bitcoin were to have some difficulty crossing that 88.5K range today. Okay. That's all eyes on Bitcoin for the moment. Okay. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Comment below. If you're looking for a new exchange or possibly just want to help support the channel, Bitunix has got you covered. We've been partnered with this exchange for over 2 years. It's been our fan favorite for our community, and the reason why is because they take really good care of you. They offer trading reward bonuses as well as a reduction in fees. Best exchange I would recommend at this point. Link down below for more information. All right, folks, quick look here at SUI. And this is a coin that we not only have a long position open with, but we also have good potential for recovery here soon. The main reason why I say that is just because even though we do have a little bit of sell-side liquidity that was swept here already, which is a good sign, we mostly see this current support range here forming with a double bottom at roughly 143. So as mentioned previously, an invalidation for this coin will be a close below 143. So this technically hasn't invalidated just yet. And the reason why I like the way that it looks here is just based on the simple fact that we are starting to see this retest of this current range, right? Bitcoin is establishing lower highs, right? You can pretty much see that lower highs and lower lows. And SUI, while it is establishing lower highs, it hasn't established a lower low yet. We haven't closed below our previous low here from Sunday, okay? And Bitcoin technically has done that already, right? So those are just some things to kind of look at. Is it like an exact science and a guarantee we're going to go up because of that? No, but it does increase the odds of further upside based on the fact that we are seeing this support level holding. Now, obviously, the more we test the support, the more likely it is to break. So we do got to pay attention. If this level continues to be tested another couple of days here down the road, it might actually open the floodgates and the price goes down, right? Between now and then, though, we got to recognize a few important things. First of all, 146 is kind of the area of confluence that could be presumed as a resistance level for us here between 145 and 146. So that does kind of tell us that, hey, we got some problems in this area. We're having difficulty breaking this range. Liquidation delta has returned back to break even here when it wicked all the way down to basically more shorts than long. So basically just telling us here that we're having, this is a point of contention, okay? Oftentimes points of contention, are usually strong supports levels, right? So all that being said, still a tremendous amount more of liquidation to the upside than the downside. There's still a little bit left as low as 137. So we could very well see that level here possibly next if Bitcoin decides it wants to see 85K. All right. So between now and then, this really does hinge on Bitcoin a lot, but for the most part, short term here, we're seeing some pretty good bottoming out here. Now, obviously, if Bitcoin doesn't recover 88.5K today, we're probably not going to see too much from SUI. I think it's pretty unrealistic to think that. But we can presume here that we're going to be kind of range bound in the immediate future until this changes, right? So ranges are established and they continue until they don't, right? So you could argue this is a bullish type of flag, bullish rectangle pattern, which is true. Since we derive from the downside, the propensity for further upside is higher, okay? Now, I don't try to attach myself to patterns at all. I think it's bad to do that. But if there's confluence and other things confirming with that, then it's a good sign. Key level support holding here so far, liquidation essentially maintaining in the green, and then obviously we see more liquidation on the upside. I think there's more incentive for the price to go higher to sweep this upper level. We still got a decent chunk of fair value too as well from previous timeframes. So I think those are all things kind of complementing the reason for this price to continue higher. Is it going to go up immediately? Probably not, just depends on Bitcoin. But if Bitcoin were to just say run towards 89K or even just say 90,000, then yes, we're probably going to be in a position to see 148 to 155. Those previous areas yesterday we identified with liquidation hit here next. But there's no doubt about it, no sugarcoating here, folks. We're still in a descending trend. The macro structure is not phenomenal. There's a lot of resistance above us, but I do feel like 154 to 160, that's that upper resistance range for us, that will likely be a next target here for us versus going any lower, right? And main reason why I feel that way is because we're seeing an overextension on money flow index right there at about 20. Stochastic is swinging up, and RSI, while it's under 50, it's still plateauing while most of the coins are going down. So again, there's some strength in this range here, but we really just kind of got to see what Bitcoin does. So unfortunately, we're kind of just tied. Bitcoin is the king dog right now. But good news is this coin, versus many other coins that I've analyzed today, is looking to be one of the better structured coins here so far. So we have just a slightly larger propensity for further upside than downside. Those are kind of my thoughts, though. I could be way off base, but looking at the charts every day for 20 years plus, I can tell you, you get a feel for these kind of things. This is still looking pretty decent, in my opinion. What are your thoughts, though? If you differ in opinion, comment below. Let me know. Love to hear it. All right, folks, quick look here at XRP, double checking some important stuff. Just kind of touch on the obvious. XRP is no specific outlier or nothing amazing here, kind of letting us know that, hey, we should take a long coin with this coin right now. Now, if you're like an emotional idiot, maybe a different story, but I say that with all due respect. We're all emotional idiots. Try to take that out of the equation and just look at this logically. Is this a coin you want to invest in that's showing significant divergence versus Bitcoin and having difficulty reclaiming that 195 level? Okay, Bitcoin did not bounce off this range. Had it done so, we probably would have saw 190 as the local bottom. Instead, that may actually be the local top for us. So let's go ahead and double check that and see if that there's anything to that. Now, the backend data tells us a lot more than what the charts tell us in a lot of ways here. So if we look at open interest, we can recognize it's pretty sparse. This coin has a tendency of having significant areas of open interest, kind of like in little blocks. Most other coins kind of accumulate all in one range. XRP is pretty spread out. So in that sense, when we see 195, that's coming obviously that local resistance. resistance. 190 is supposed to be that support level for us. We still haven't closed below that yet on the daily, so we can't rule it out just yet, but 190 hypothetically should be that support for us. And then secondary to that, 185. So kind of some easy numbers, remember, 185, 190, 195. I'm rounding up a little bit, but it's generally kind of what we're looking at there, okay? All that being said, take a look here on the left-hand side. Liquidation delta is right there at break even. That generally is implying a shift in momentum. Now, most coins look like this today, so it's not necessarily meaning that we're just going straight down from here. But that tells us we have just as many longs as we do shorts in the market, and that there's indecision. Oftentimes, you want to see a stronger liquidation long delta when the support ranges are tested to have give it some legs, right? We don't have any legs right now. We got more liquidation on the downside as low as 185. So hypothetically, 185 were to occur, that seems like a logical place to consider a short-term long position. Everything has to be held to short-term right now, folks. If you are holding on for days or weeks or months right now, you're in pretty rough shape, I'm sure of it. Obviously, depending on how you're trading long-term, if you've been with the macro trend to the downside, it's a different story. Not a lot of people really do that. And the truth is, you just got to secure profits when you can in the market right now. It's a nonsensical market. And if you're walking away, you start a trade, it goes in the green, you're like feeling good, you wake up the next morning, it's in the red, and you just keep holding and holding and holding. It's not a really good strategy, right? Never turn a day trade into a swing trade. That's just rule number one. Okay. Anyways, everything looks pretty dang bearish here. We are seeing overextension at 20 on the money flow index. Oftentimes that will be a pivot type of area where, just money starts to naturally flow into a coin because there's been so much coming out of it, right? And it's also more affordable now too than before, right? So those who bought in at 220, that 180 to 185 looks pretty juicy to them, right? All that being said, this is outside that one outlier there, we have a significant descending trend. We have money flow index very low. We've got stochastic still having trouble swinging up, even though it is, yes. It's a very unnatural capitulation, okay? And what I mean by unnatural is just that, the way the market is moving right now, there's no reason to presume the price is going to go up from here, right? We got to make sure to kind of pay attention and protect your investments. And if you're investing in this coin, it's a different story altogether, because spot bags are, it's easy to say, just average in as the price goes down. But if you're trading with leverage, you got to treat this with respect. And we've lost 50 on the RSI, stochastic still pointing down. We're still very early here to want to consider a long. Yes, it could bounce, but that requires Bitcoin to do so as well. And Bitcoin is showing extreme prejudice towards the downside, if you will. And there's a good chance that, yes, we may see a slight relief rally to 88.5 or 89K for Bitcoin. There's a good chance that if that doesn't happen, XRP will continue to bleed out, as with Bitcoin. Okay, so just some things to be mindful of. This is not exact rocket science by any stretch, folks. I could totally be off base, but these aren't signs that you should normally or naturally feel comfortable trading into, specifically to the upside. If you're shorting right now, adjust your stop loss into profit. Make sure you walk away in the green, because we don't know if the price is going to pump immediately here, right? Getting Bitcoin above 88.5, I think, is a very first step in the right direction. If we can reclaim 88.5 today on Bitcoin, then I think a lot of these altcoins are going to do well, because we're going to start to see that altcoin dominance shift in momentum with Bitcoin dominance receding, okay? Those are all things, of course, we need to see before you should take or consider a long to the upside, okay? So those are my thoughts. What are yours? Why don't you comment below? I'd really love to hear it. Quick heads up to our traders. We got a 15% discount on trading fees if you use my link to register through Bitunix. Links down below in the description. All right, folks, quick look here at Chainlink, just double checking a few important factors. Specifically, this lower low pattern that we're seeing is not quite as obscene as other coins, or it's not significantly correcting itself as well as most coins have. So while we are establishing lower lows, this isn't super significant versus Bitcoin, and it's also performing well with its responses. In other words, every time Bitcoin were to recover, we're seeing Chainlink recover quite well, 1.5, maybe 2x of Bitcoin in most cases. All right, so I'm kind of leaning more towards this coin doing well in the near future, just based on partially yesterday's analysis, but also based on the premise that the patterns are looking a bit better than most other altcoins I've looked at today. And I've looked at over a dozen already so far, and I can tell you this one does look a little more promising. We have a good support at hold on, this is the wrong coin. Scroll down to Chainlink. There we go. We have good support and resistance at about 1260. So be mindful. If we come up to 1260, that was supposed to have worked as support yesterday. Had Bitcoin held 88,500 and didn't get super greedy, that's probably where we'd be right now. But at this point here, 12.6, 1260 is that tentative resistance for us. So if you're going to consider a long on this coin, make sure you secure profits between now and then, because that could be the local shelf for us. Now, again, open interest is just kind of an area of confluence in a lot of cases. You want to use it as such, but it can be construed as a resistance or support in a lot of ways. Looking at liquidation delta, we can see we shifted bearish though. I don't love this. This isn't something I like to look for in a trade. Now, if that can reclaim, basically zero or then some, we're in good shape. But generally, when you see that shift in momentum from longs flipping to short positions, you're going against the grain now, trying to take a long. That's the concept. But keep in mind, Bitcoin kind of had that as well. It dipped down a little bit, but it's still in the green versus this one actually in the red. So not a good pairing there. That does look like a dynamic shift to me. And we can see $12.20 to $12 is kind of that lower area of liquidation. Majority of that has been swept though. We saw what, $250 million with that one candle wick down between 12.20 to 12.03. Okay, so pretty significant correction there for this coin. That was a jerk move on the whale's part there. So taking a look at the 4-hour time frame, we can see this descending trend kind of just letting us know that we're overall not in great shape. This is not a phenomenal situation here. Money flow index and RSI are kind of tapering off or just hanging out just below 50. I prefer to have that level kind of above, if you will. We were trending towards breaking that yesterday when we looked at this last, so that was looking like positive. Now it's looking a little bit more on the negative side. Daily time frame also starting to see a lot of doji candles here forming, and that generally implies indecision. We've seen this for the last 2 or 3 trading days though for most coins, so this is really nothing outrageous. But reclaiming 1260, which we were on target to close above that yesterday but didn't, is going to be an important factor for us. So 1260 is kind of that local point of control based on volume. That's that local resistance. So to me, a long position on this coin at 1260 or higher seems to make more sense as long as Bitcoin can recover 88.5K or higher. Okay, so if we start to see money flowing into Bitcoin, money, basically volume remaining high on Bitcoin, sustaining 88.5K or higher, then I think majority of the altcoins we've covered today will be good picks. But between now and then, we got to recognize that altcoin dominance is still quite low. It keeps pulling back. Same thing with ETH dominance too. So ETH isn't absorbing any market cap either. For the most part, once it starts to plateau here, and we start to see stablecoin dominance decreasing, that's generally when we want to consider buying. It can be difficult to identify that though, folks, because oftentimes the ship has already sailed by the time you get there. So I know I make it sound super easy. It's totally not. And truth is I miss a ton of opportunity, right? So the thing that I don't do though is I don't FOMO into a trade when I'm sleeping. I don't take, or I don't like wake up and be like, oh, my alert hit, so I'm just going to go ahead and jump in and go back to bed. I make sure that I'm paying attention. I reevaluate Bitcoin before I do anything else, and that really helps me increase my success rate. So I hope that the same for you too. You can start to adopt that philosophy. It's why we look at altcoins and Bitcoin together to understand, kind of understand their pairing. But also to recognize that, hey, trading is difficult and you got to just respect the market and not, it'll disrespect you day in and day out if you don't do it yourself, right? So anyways, just some friendly advice. I hope that makes sense in how I describe it. I hope you all have a great rest of your day and once more, Merry Christmas Eve, as my family likes to say. And we'll look forward to seeing the next one. Have a good rest of your day. See you soon.